Hello, Dave Barry here. Mic check.
You sound great. Thank you.
Oh,
Regina?
thank you. So do you.
Yes. Oh, thanks. Regina, I need you to select your audio so that you can connect.
This is an announcement that the meeting is now broadcast live.
Hi, Regina. I'm not sure if you heard me, but I do need you to select your audio so that you can speak and we can hear you. Good afternoon, Supervisor Ellenberg.
Good afternoon. Moved my computer and now everything's off.
Good afternoon, Regina. Would you like to do a mic check?
Testing. Hello.
Hear you loud and clear. Thank you. Hello, Daniel. Would you like to do a mic check?
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hear you loud and clear. Thank you. Good afternoon, Supervisor Chavez. Would you like to do a mic check?
Hi, this is Victor. Supervisor Chavez will be on shortly.
Oh, hello, Victor. Well, great. Her microphone works wonderfully.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Melanie. I see that you need to select your microphone to enable you or enable us to hear you.
Good afternoon. If anyone who's just joined us would like to check their microphone, please feel free. And also we are broadcast live.
Thank you very much, Jess. Appreciate that.
Good afternoon, Jess. Do I do my mic check with you?
You sure do. Sounds good. Thank you.
I wanted to hear you sing, Rob, but okay.
A voice made for silent film, face made for radio, voice made for silent film. How's that?
Oh, that's so funny. Well, we're going to go ahead and, oh, I'm sorry, we still have a little bit of time. Hi, Susan. All right.
Hey there.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to begin our Children, Seniors, and Families Committee meeting for February 25th. I'm going to ask for the staff to call roll.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
I'm here.
Chairperson Chavez.
Here.
You have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're now going to go to public comment, and this is an opportunity to speak to an item that is not on the agenda, but within the purview of this committee. And we'll give each speaker 2 minutes who would like to speak at this time.
Our first speaker is Scott Largent. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Good afternoon, everyone. Scott Largent. Last meeting, I would like to apologize for using inappropriate language. That was just outright wrong to do at a Children, Seniors, and Family Committee meeting. I really hope there was no kids on the call, and I am truly sorry. So I stuck my foot in my mouth. I was very frustrated with things that have been going on. It's very difficult to continue the bond with my child, but I'm trying everything that I can do. And I got a little frustrated. My home/transportation wasn't running very good. You know, I have to get over to the side of the county building near the sheriff's department because that's how I set up for my visits. I have Zoom visits almost daily at 6:30, but just the process of getting the extension cord plugged into the side of facilities and fleet, setting up all my daughter's toys inside the van. You know, I put on a show for her. I have to, you know, it helps with not just having a real place. I was able to get a motorhome of all things. I never thought that I would ever get back into a motorhome, but this has been really great. I got a Honda generator. I have a permanent area kind of set up for my Zoom visits now. And it is what it is. It's just very hard. My daughter's asking 1,000 questions now. I'm just trying to do the best I can. I don't want to give up, and I really don't. And hopefully we can kind of figure this out for other people to continue that bond. And I am sorry for last meeting. I know I kind of threw those things out there, and I am truly sorry. So thank you.
Scott, I want to just say thank you for your apology, and you know, and appreciate that. this is such a hard time for everyone, and really appreciate your perspective. I think we all listen to you perhaps more carefully than you know. So thank you for that. We're going to go back to item 3, and this is to approve the consent and calendar and any changes to the agenda. And Supervisor Ellenberg, we have a lot on our agenda today, and so I was hoping that we could pare down pieces of it, but also in certain instances we actually may not need presentations, but we can just ask questions of those areas if that's okay by you. Given that I know this, yeah, great. And if there's some that you would like a presentation, just interrupt me. I'm going to try to keep us kind of rolling. First, I'd like to ask that items 4 and 6 go to the consent calendar. This is the neighborhood safety unit. Neighborhood safety services unit.
Yep.
And item 6, which is our Human Trafficking Commission recommendations work plan. And I just want to remind folks that are listening that we often add things to consent because the reports are very clear and they're very direct. And I don't want anybody to misinterpret this as an item being moved to consent as meaning anything else. And item 4 is a report from the probation department. And I'd like to really say to staff, they've done excellent work, and the report, and especially for stepping up and adjusting their services to be responsive to COVID-19. They just did a brilliant job. Item 6 is in response to my December 15th referral relating to the Human Trafficking Commission recommendations. Part of this work has already been deferred twice by our staff at our board meetings. And so in this instance, what I'd like to do is direct staff to report to the board on March 23rd with a full response to the 15th referral. And as a reminder, the report should include a work plan prioritizing the implementation recommendations brought forward at the December 4th Human Trafficking Commission, criteria used for prioritization, and the identification of resource needs to ensure implementation of those prioritizations. That would, along with items 19, would be my recommendation for consent. And I don't know, Supervisor Ellenberg, if you have any you'd like to add, or if you would like to take off either of the things that I'm recommending.
No, these are fine. In fact, the Neighborhood Safety Services Unit report came before PSJC in September of 2020, and you're quite right that the work that they're doing is absolutely tremendous. But I'm glad to support a motion to move 4 and 6 to consent.
Great. And then the other items that I would like to ask is if we could get here item 7, which is the Child Advocacy Center, with item 8, which is a verbal update on the Spark Clinic at O'Connor and just the work being done there. I think that would be really a good way to proceed.
That's fine.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
The clerk's office would like to request that item 19 be held to the next meeting.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thanks for catching that. So we'll be putting item 4 and item 6 on consent, and we'll hear item 7 and 8 together, and item 19 will be deferred to our next meeting. And that is a motion from Supervisor Ellenberg.
It is.
A second from myself, and we have to do a roll call vote, the new rules.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg?
Yes.
Chairperson Chavez?
Yes, thank you very much. Well, with that, we're going to move to item 5, and this is a VASC report. And I don't know, Key, do we have a presentation on this today?
Yes, we have a presentation, but we can hold off on that if you just want to ask questions. So,
Supervisor Ellenberg, is it all right if we just go right to questions?
Absolutely.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say I appreciate the opportunity to continue to engage with the community. And as you're doing community engagement, I wanted to make 3 requests. First, at the next meeting, to please provide a detailed descriptions of the services that are going to be provided at the VASC. And second, that as we move closer to the opening date, we want to make sure that we have an outreach plan that we can also just understand, because I think there's going to be a lot of interest in how we move forward, and that includes, you know, especially in the Vietnamese community radio. And then lastly, I just can't emphasize enough that we had been requesting as part of the overall program that we make sure that we have a website for the VASC so that people understand how to use it, and that that's going to be up in plenty of time prior to the opening. Those were all of my requests. Are there any concerns about those or any feedback? Supervisor Ellenberg, do you have any comments on that?
Sorry, I don't.
Okay, I hear someone has a comment, but not.
Yes, she always has a comment.
There you go. Well, with that, we're just going to receive the report, so there's no action necessary. Thank you very much for coming prepared, and I appreciate those being incorporated in the next steps.
Will do.
Thank you.
Supervisor Chavez, I neglected to note that I did have a question on 4, which we moved to consent. I'm happy to, if that's all right with you, to just make the request, having voted on it on consent, but just to put into the record. Is that all right? Doesn't need a discussion now.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Thanks.
Thank you so much. During the PSJC meeting in September, I had mentioned that it would have been beneficial to see the performance metrics broken out by quarter. That way we'd have a clearer visual of the impacts of the pandemic on programming, and requested that the next report break out the metrics of success and outcomes by quarter. So I just wanted to sunshine that same request again here. That's it. Thank you.
Excellent. And I'm supportive of that. Thanks. All right. So we're going to move on then to items 7 and 8. And if I could ask the folks who are going to present, if we could let both parties present, and then we'll come back to we'll go to the public and then back to the board for discussion. So James, are you getting us started, or Dr. Smith?
I think it's me getting us started with the CAC update. I'll just say that we are on track for.
James, I'm so sorry to do this. I just want to make sure on the outreach, the engagement activities for the outreach. I hope I was clear, and I'm sorry, Betty and Key, that the outreach activities that you're outlining, just to go ahead and do them. I hope that was clear in the last presentation. All right. Say thanks, Key. Thanks, Betty. James.
I wanted to let you know that we are on track for project completion 4 weeks from tomorrow, March 26th. So the HVAC, the heating and ventilation equipment is being installed. The furniture arrives next week, Wednesday. Paint and murals are going up. Medical equipment arrives every day and is being installed. We've had tabletop exercises with all the various groups separately. We've got workspaces and phone numbers assigned. All these little details that you need to take care of in the last week are all being taken care of right now. The main challenges that we have are, as sometimes happens in construction, there was a pipe that burst as they were trying to do some work there. It caused some flooding. The damage repair is being covered by insurance, and because we're more than a month out, that repair is going to be completed by March 26th, but I'm glad that happened last week and not 3 weeks from now. We have to really finalize these MOUs between all these groups. I think we're very close to getting those finalized, but they're not yet signed. And we've been talking about having an on-site kind of dress rehearsal practice couple of sessions in that last week when the project is set to be completed. If the space allows, if the construction allows, and it looks right now like it will, that we can spend some time in that last week that ends on March 26th doing some in-person on-site dress rehearsal sort of with all the groups.
Which is very exciting. And I'm curious, well, when we come back, Rob, the question I'm going to have for you is just the ETA on the MOUs. Just if we can get that. And Dr. Smith, before we go into too much more on this, the last time we met, you were speaking about wanting to make O'Connor a center of excellence for children, which I think is just an incredibly thoughtful vision. And what I wanted to better understand from you was a little bit about the opportunity to co-locate the Spark Clinic, the dental and behavioral services on the Child Advocacy Center site.
Yes, can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay. Last time we were talking in concept, but we've done some research and we're looking at space right now. I think we've identified a location about 2,800 square feet. It's not right next door to CAC, but it's on the same campus. As you know, but just for the sake of those listening, Spark Clinic is a very special clinic that's currently operated at the downtown clinic that provides dental, psychiatric, and medical care to children who are and adolescents who are at high risk, foster kids that are our responsibility. We've known for quite some time that we'd like to expand that service. And currently what we're thinking about is moving, like I said, to the campus of O'Connor and expanding the clinic both in size and in capacity so that we'll be able to have a coordinated center of excellence for children and adolescents. Now this plus the CAC plus the inpatient pediatrics plus additional services, which we'll talk about later, would begin the build to make O'Connor a center of excellence for children at risk and children in general. And I think it would be a great complement to our women's center at VMC, which is only a few blocks away. So we'll have to come back to you with a lot more detail, obviously. But maybe Paul can mention a few concepts that have already been looked at. Paul, are you on?
I am. Thank you, Dr. Smith and Supervisor Chavez and Ellenberg. It's a pleasure to be here. And I have to say that the vision that Dr. Smith speaks of is something that many of us in leadership are looking forward to. And I want to also share with the group that more recently we opened up a pediatric urgent care on the O'Connor Hospital campus. So we're already beginning putting together the pieces relative to a center of excellence for pediatric care. With respect to the Spark Clinic, we have identified 2,800 square feet. It's actually in the same building as CAC. We do anticipate additional space to become available here in the near future. But what we are doing now is moving forward with the planning of the Spark Clinic. So FAF and the team will be meeting with the staff to begin to plan out the available space or the anticipated space in that facility so that we can move on this as quickly as possible. And then I think to Dr. Smith's point about the vision, we will begin some internal meetings in terms of what that would look like. I know there's been interest around diagnostic services, around pediatric care. And so all of that would be inclusive in these planning efforts going forward.
I think, you know, I want to say hallelujah, but maybe I will. Hallelujah. I think this is just, it's a little bit of a dream come true, at least from my perspective. And I know Dr. Strom from yours and others who've been dreaming about this for a long time. I really am very interested in making sure that as we're having this discussion, we're also looking at the Child Diagnostic Center, as you just touched upon, Paul, because I think one of the opportunities is really to be place-based in our ability to, you know, really connect children's diagnostics with schools and with the medical professionals. And I think the sooner that we're able to do that, and frankly, I think even starting on a small scale with the children who we're responsible for, those that are in our custodial care, would be the ideal way to start and understand that better. And not unlike the expansion of psychiatric services for children on the VMC campus, what's interesting about the interesting opportunity I think we have here is that as we think about the continuum of care, there's clearly a delta in that continuum. The real question is how big is that delta? And so in some ways, I actually, as you all know, I don't like to do things incrementally. I like to jump.
Rubric. The descriptions I'm hearing Child Diagnostic Center are really exciting, but also echo what I understood to be the county Office of Ed's purview. From when I was a school board member, those kinds of issues went to them.
Yeah, and let me.
If you could help play that out in an off agenda, that would be helpful.
And Susan, what we'll also do is forward to you the referrals that I've made to the board on the center, because one of the opportunities we have is that that there are pieces of this that belong to a lot of different partners. The linkage here is to take what the partners are responsible for, but to more closely align the process of diagnosis to get it shorter, and to connect our medical teams to the families, to the schools, because right now the schools do some of the assessments are medical, and it requires the parent to negotiate between all the parties to get services for the child. That's really the problem we're trying to solve. There's a little bit of work that the staff's already done on this, and Dr. Smith, what I would request is that I think there's been a couple of off-agenda reports already that have that kind of update on where we are in our thinking about it, and I can't remember if there's one that already did that assessment, Susan. I can't remember reading it. So I think that's a good request. I just wanted to put it in the context of all the other
Thanks, great. If it exists. If it exists,
sure.
My team will find it.
No, I'm not sure actually.
I don't think it exists technically in writing right now, but we'll definitely do that. I mean, I think the general theme, as you know, is that the school district is responsible for for funding and making sure that the evaluation is done. But oftentimes particular school districts either don't have sufficient funding or have minimal access to the appropriate evaluation. So the theory here would be to have a central location that would not take the place of what a school district or the Office of Education wanted to do, but would be a location where they could obtain that evaluation if they needed.
I think it's an exciting opportunity, and I certainly like the idea of making things convenient for parents by having them co-located in the same place. So it is becoming clearer over time as it becomes more developed in what the purpose and the structure is. But I'll look forward to seeing the off agenda just to have that all in writing as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that as well. Thank you, Susan. Any other comments, Susan?
No.
Great. Well, thank you. There's no action today except to say yay, and we'll see you soon. And Dr. Strom, I really appreciate you being here. I know this has been a labor of love for you as well, and this is very exciting. We're moving forward.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to move on to item 9. And
Madam Chairperson, I do have a request to speak.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
No problem. Our next speaker is Scott Largent. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have, I believe, 2 minutes to speak. Timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you, everyone. Scott Largent. This is fantastic work. I was in the foster care system, as you guys are aware, at a young age, and hearing that things are changing and so much work is going into this is great to hear. A lot of people that I advocate for on the streets were in the system here in Santa Clara County, and they have a lot of problems later in life. So if we can prevent that, that would be fantastic. We talk about home visitation, and I understand this is for foster children, the most vulnerable in our community. That would not apply for my daughter, and I totally understand that. A suggestion. I know everybody's kind of zoomed out, Zoom fatigue, and these visits that I have been recommending this to people that I meet on the streets that have been, the tie's been severed with their children or their family. And I've let them know, because all I talk about is my visits all the time. I'm always rushing to get to them and get onto Zoom. this can build a bridge that is destroyed in a way. And these Zoom visits are fully recorded, and you also have a provider that's there that kind of keeps both parents in line. If there's an issue, you know, somebody doesn't want you to say something or do something, the final say-so is the provider. And this has been very helpful. And maybe we could roll this out to kind of rebuild that bridge for a lot of people. And it's, you know, they're recorded. I mean, I think it's a great system, and it's through Healthy Families, Happy Families, and it's a grant, and it is through our courts. And Laura is the gal that basically handles the visits, but it is a neat thing, because if I didn't have that, that would have been a year without talking to my daughter, which would have been horrible. So thank you.
That concludes our speakers.
Thank you very much. Rob?
Supervisor, you had given our office a heads up and prior to the meeting, as well as teeing up when the matter was begun, that you were going to ask us the status of the MOU. So I'll provide that.
Well, thank you.
We, as it relates to the nonprofits, we provided the nonprofit entities with the MOUs, have not received any concerns raised at all. So we're optimistic those portions of the MOUs can be resolved certainly, you know, within the next week or 10 days. As it relates to cities other than the city of San Jose, we also shared that. I think our most recent communications were February 3rd with those cities and received no concerns raised. So it's just following up and getting signatures. With respect to San Jose, we've narrowed the issues down to, I think, only 2 minor issues. And as Mr. Gibbons-Shapiro indicated, we're optimistic we can have the MOU fully executed and agreed upon by all these other entities, certainly within the next 2 weeks, if not much sooner.
That's great. Thank you very much, Rob, because that we'd like it to open when it can open. Thank you. That's great. With that, we're going to move on to item 9. And item 9, we're going to have, this is a report from the SSA's Office of Research and Evaluation, and we're going to have a 10-minute presentation, and I'm going to turn it over to Catherine to get us started.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to start sharing my screen here. Is everyone able to see my screen here?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So again, hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Vu, and I'm the Director of Research and Evaluation at SSA. Thank you for this opportunity to share some of the research and evaluation work that we're doing. This presentation is really meant to be a high-level presentation to provide everyone with an overview of our agenda, along with some examples of some of the projects or questions that we're working on. Supervisor Chavez, I know you mentioned that we're on a pretty tight timeline, so if there are any questions, if you can please, if anyone has any, please type them in the chat box, and hopefully we'll have some time at the end of the presentation to answer them.
Ms. Vu, unfortunately, with the webinar format, we do not have a chat feature.
Yeah, I'm just, Catherine, we won't interrupt you. Just go ahead. You've got 10 minutes. You wow us, and then we'll ask questions. We'll go to the public, and then we'll ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So then before we get into our agendas, I'm just going to turn it over to our Deputy Director, Sandia Hermon, to give some background on how research and evaluation fits into the larger context of PSRE's role in informing and using data to inform program and services.
Thank you, Kathy, and good afternoon, everyone. Again, thanks for giving us this opportunity to provide the abbreviated research agenda. And I just wanted to share that it's part of our ongoing journey to make SSA more data and evidence informed. We really want to get to a place where we can say that services and products that we offer to our clients and to our staff are effective, and really moving to a place where we can be more proactive and less reactive. I just want to say that we are really trying to be more data-driven in many different areas. In the area of staff development and training, we're evaluating the effectiveness of the induction of new hire training, readying new workers for the job, but then also trying to link sort of broader patterns of staff development and training to retention, to longer-term retention. In the area of employee engagement and well-being, we've done a lot over the last couple of years. This is going to be our third year of measuring culture and climate at SSA. And we really are being very diligent about measuring morale and well-being and trying to develop strategies to improve the same. For example, we've developed the SSA mentoring program, which is something that came out of our culture and climate survey and staff feedback. In the areas of sort of reporting and policy tracking and analysis, we're really trying to get to a place where we're moving away from static reports and diving deeper into analytics. And then finally, in the research and evaluation space, there's a very specific, diving in programmatically to develop a rigorous research and evaluation agenda so that we can speak to the effectiveness of our different offerings. And with that, Kathy, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. So this slide really describes our missions, our team's mission, which is really to strengthen informed decision-making, develop effective programs, and deliver efficient services to achieve positive outcomes for our communities and clients. In all of the work that we do, we strive to be responsive and really taking the time to understand not only what the project is about, but also the context in which the project is being done, as well as where our stakeholders are and the context that they're operating in. Because we're an in-house research team, we also share the experiences, culture, and norms with our partners and stakeholders. So that really enables us to be more compassionate and understanding about where they're coming from so that we can best support them. And finally, innovation is really a core part of our work as researchers and evaluators. We seek to really explore new ways to do things in partnerships with the departments so that we can translate them, apply them, and test new ideas in the programs and services to improve programs and services. So that's just a little bit about us and how we work. I'm going to move into the agendas. Here we go. So our first agenda that I'd like to share is the organizational development agenda. And that really focuses on developing a plan to build a learning organization within SSA. And we define learning organization as one that is skilled at creating, acquiring, and transferring knowledge, and at modifying its behavior to reflect new knowledge and insights. And so as Sandhya just mentioned, we have a lot of pieces of starting or of being a learning organization. She mentioned the annual engagement and well-being survey, the mentoring program, which is now in its second year. And then also the development of a leadership development program for our staff to help them build skills and managerial skills. So a lot of learning that's going on and application, but these types of learning activities are primarily done with smaller groups of people or within silos. And what this plan really focuses on is building a systematic way of really generating, using, and sharing and applying knowledge to improve programs and practices as a collective, as a collective organization in SSA. So we'll do that. We'll plan to do that using the iterative Plan, Do, Study, Act framework, where we start with a plan that really aligns our organizational learning activities and strategies together to create a more strategic plan, a cohesive strategic plan. Then we'll also start by laying the foundation and building the infrastructure of the learning organization. And what that really means is really to start creating a supportive learning environment, developing concrete processes and practices, and also coaching leadership to reinforce the behaviors that we want to see in an organization, like a learning organization. And really, those building blocks are what the literature has found to be successful components of a learning organization. The third step is to evaluate what we've done and then use that information to inform recommendations on how best to build a learning organization. And then that last step would be to implement those recommendations, and after changes have been made, to then use the results and to revise plans for the next iteration. Now, this is a pretty ambitious journey that'll take a long time. I had a wonderful conversation yesterday with Landy Lopez to better understand the countywide journey of creating a learning organization. And so we're being ambitious. We're being but we also do want to give ourselves some time and space to make this cultural shift together. The agency-wide prevention agenda focuses on building a holistic model to strengthen communities. The idea is to start with the Department of Family and Children's Services to create a foundation or a playbook of methods and processes that will be tested in order to develop prevention strategies. We then document what we did, what worked, and what was less successful, and why, and then expand what we've learned to other SSA departments. We plan to do this in phases. In the predict phase, we'd start by defining who and where our target populations and communities are, and identifying predictor variables to create a model that includes both strengths and risks. Next, we would plan to focus on assessing community needs by doing a landscape analysis to really understand where existing services and resources are and identifying where the gaps are. And then based on the information we gather, we plan to incorporate client-centered approaches into a strategic plan so that we have perspectives and involvement of clients and communities throughout the process. Once our plan is in place, we would work with DFCS, like I mentioned, we'd start with DFCS to implement and evaluate the plan, and then apply our lessons learned from working with DFCS to develop prevention plans for the rest of the departments. The specific DFCS agenda is more targeted to support prevention at all levels of the child welfare system to keep children safely in their families or return to their families permanently. The goal here is to inform programs and practice to build strong communities and increase families' abilities to promote safe, stable, and nurturing environments for their children. So there's a framework that we're using with 3 levels of prevention. Primary prevention is meant to prevent families from any contact with DFCS. Secondary prevention prevents families who have monitored DFCS involvement from further penetrating into the system. And finally, tertiary prevention aims to keep the children who have exited from the system from returning. I've included some examples here of the work that we're doing right now, but for the sake of time, I won't be able to describe them specifically. But again, any questions that may come up, I'm happy to answer at another time. The DAWS agenda focuses on exploring program effectiveness and equity through research and evaluation, which are some of the first steps to improve effectiveness and equity among our elder and dependent adult community members. Program effectiveness assesses short and long-term outcomes of services and programs. The APS Home Safe program, which you heard about 2 weeks ago, and the Adult Day Services program, which assesses the program's impact on the quality of life of low-income elder adults and their caregivers, are a few examples of the evaluations that we're currently working on. Social equity has been identified by DAWS as a priority that they'd like to work on and focus on. So it's targeted at racial equity in areas of program outcomes, the digital divide, and social isolation of elder adults. We're currently working with the department to flesh out specific topics that they're interested in exploring, but some sample questions could focus on variations in outcomes, access, or experiences by race and ethnicity. In DEVS, we've been working on moving beyond client satisfaction to better understand client experience, with the idea being that understanding client experience will help us improve client outcomes. So in order to do so, we've been working to build capacity within the department to incorporate participatory approaches in programs. Participatory research and evaluation is a valuable approach of including client voices in the design and evaluation of these types of programs. So for example, in Intern and Earn 2.0, which is a joint program with DEBS and DFCS that provides an internship opportunities for foster youth throughout the year, uses a participatory approach by including a former foster youth in both the development and the evaluation of the program. Her lived experiences have not only shaped the design and implementation of 2.0, but she's also now working with our lead researcher and 2 other former foster youth to conduct the program evaluation with the 2.0 participants. The results of using this type of approach not only leads to recommendations by youth to improve the services and programs that youth receive, but it also leads to better understanding of how we can use similar participatory methods across the agency to incorporate client voice into the programs and services that we provide. So this last slide just highlights some of the challenges that we face doing research and evaluation. Oops. The last three here about resources, shifts in policies and priorities and timelines, those are similar to what other units and teams may face. But I did want to just highlight the first one on data access and availability, because a lot of what we do requires data, and either sometimes we don't have access to it, or we have to collect it on our own. So we have to come up with proxies for data, or in some cases, not continue with some of the ideas that we want to do. So this is a challenge that is unique to doing research and evaluation, I think, and is something that we're continuing to explore ways to overcome so that we can do some of the innovative work that we hope to do.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I'm going to turn to the public. And Catherine, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask if you could mute because I think I'm bouncing off you there. So we'll go to the public comment and then back to the board for questions or feedback.
Our first speaker is Sparky Harlan. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. Timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hi, Sparky Harlan, CEO of Bill Wilson Center. This is a particular interest of me, which is the research and evaluation, especially tracking families and young people that go in and out of the foster care system at a young age, or who have multiple reports on child abuse. One of the goals clearly is family reunification and permanency, but we see so many young people who end up in kinship placement or permanent placement, who maybe at age 12 went back home, and at age 18 they end up homeless, and they're not eligible for any of the extended foster care or THP+. Supervisor Chavez has often heard me said, once you're in foster care, there are children forever with the county. And I would love to see us try to track these young people and children and families over time. SSA keeps telling me, well, we can't track them for 18 years or whatever. We don't keep the data. But I think we're going to keep seeing homeless adults say they were in foster care. But what we know in our PIT count, only 5% of homeless youth said aging out caused them to be homeless, but up to 50% said they had spent time in foster care. So I'd love to see us try to track this more, and also track families that are in and out of homelessness and how many of their children are ending up foster care or later in the justice system. We're seeing some of the young people returning from DJJ who had been long ago dual status. And in fact, one of the young adults, we were able to track down that they were actually eligible for THP+, and nobody else knew that. So we were able to get them into that foster care benefit. So I would love to talk to SSA more about this, or to have some direction about tracking.
Thank you. Are there any?
That concludes our speakers.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Sparky. I'm going to come back to the board for discussion, and just one point I want to make is I'll dive in a little more about the Child Abuse and Neglect Center, which will have a lot of overlap with this particular body of work. And the other thing I just wanted to say, Supervisor Ellenberg, is that one of my great frustrations has been that we spend a great deal of money on outside evaluators to help us evaluate programs that the county's doing. And that, to be frank with you, the rigor of the evaluations is very broad in terms of the, you know, it almost depends on who we get and what their area of expertise is. I think we have a couple of outside evaluators for the county that are exceptional. And most of them, I'm hopeful that our that we can start to play a much greater role in bringing those resources in-house. And I think the point that Sparky just raised is a really important one, because part of the reason that I think we're challenged is we have very incremental relationships with evaluators and evaluations versus having that really core in-house. And I don't know if Dr. Smith is still online, but I will just share one other thing, is that when I very first got to the county, this was such a frustration for me when I was here as a staff person 100 years ago, that I was very excited that part of Dr. Smith's initial vision around some of our offices really had to do with us being much more engaged in evaluation. And there were a lot of reasons for that. One is, I think, the point that Sparky raised, but the other is that when we write grants or we try to help people understand the work that we're doing here, we didn't really have a well to go to of our own work, which I think we want to be thought leaders in a lot of these different areas. And Dr. Smith, I'm forgetting, is that was Dr. Blume's office was part of the goal that you had for that office as well. Is that accurate?
Well, the overall effort was the Center for Leadership and Transformation, which is still ongoing, and Leslie has been a leader in the field, and Landy Lopez has been basically coordinating all of the effort across the county. And as was brought out, they've been working closely with a number of departments and agencies, particularly SSA and the health system and TSS and others. And the whole focus is to bring a type of Six Sigma discipline to the county so that we do process analysis, measure change, and make small tests of change so that we can actually demonstrate that we're doing something that has a positive effect for the client. And so this effort from the research part of SSA is very coherent with that effort that we're trying for the entire county, and SSA is doing a wonderful job here. The research team is getting a lot of traction with the entire agency and really producing some great products that'll help make sure that we actually provide services that actually help our clients in a timely and effective manner. And I'm really excited about the effort. Bob and the entire team have been just really thriving on this approach to process transformation.
Thanks, Dr. Smith. Supervisor Ellenberg?
Thanks. I want to ask a more specific question and then build a little bit on what Dr. Smith was saying, because I think it's really exciting. But first, what is the thinking in the development of this research agenda, or in general, more generally around the assessment of needs and future planning to address the needs of kids and families that have been exacerbated by the pandemic? And I'm thinking, before I let you answer, specifically about things like a potential wave of new child abuse reports once in-person learning resumes, increased demands for benefits like CalFresh and Medi-Cal, strategies around, I hate the phrase learning loss, but for lack of a better one right now, learning loss for foster children. Is there some kind of process underway to prioritize and strategize work that may need to be expanded by the county?
I think Catherine can probably take that best from the SSA perspective.
Okay.
Sure, thank you for that question. So yes, definitely, that's something that my team has talked about from the beginning of COVID, to just explore what are the impacts, because there's not a lot of, we've never been in a pandemic before, and the pandemic has really upended a lot of the way we do things and life in general. And so we have been having discussions on how we can explore the impacts of COVID, not just on programs and policy practices, but on the clients as well. And so you'll see that come through in a lot of our evaluations. Because of COVID, for example, programs such as the Home Safe program or the Adult Day Services program, they've had to change the way that they've done and delivered services. And so with that, we've had to change the way and adapt to those changes on how we evaluate those programs. And so I think that you'll see some of that come out through evaluations because the programs have naturally had to adapt to the pandemic as well.
Thanks. That's thoughtful, Catherine. I appreciate it. On just a broader level, I really do appreciate that the county is committed to becoming and is on some levels a learning organization already. I'm really pleased to see that we're pursuing innovative ways to serve our most vulnerable residents. I want to note that overall, meaning countywide, I think we need to step up on creating very clear metrics for our intended impacts on the county in every department, as well as our performance gathering data game. I think in every department, we need to be clear about what the service goals are and whether our current allocations of funding, our current programs, services are actually accomplishing those ends. And I would note just as an example that the agendas for DFCS and DAAS could be a little bit more substantive regarding goals, strategies, and tactics around some specific principles, developing a plan, laying out the foundation and building the infrastructure, implementing the changes, and then, of course, qualifying and quantifying the evaluation. I also think just another observation that stakeholder, community, public, and client buy-in, and when I say clients, I'm including foster kids, their buy-in should be a tactic in moving us in the direction of becoming a really strong learning organization. Really good data can come from stories, and stories, of course, come from the people that we are serving. And I think that we have the opportunity to iterate and improve our service to residents at the same time that we're collecting data in a sympathetic and empathic manner.
Yes, thank you for that. I think that what you said, Supervisor Allenberg, is really aligned with what the agency SSA overall is trying to do, and really trying to use more client-focused and client-centered approaches to incorporate those voices into developing and improving the programs and services that we have, using the information coming directly from the user, right? The end user or the client or the community. And so we're really, we've been making a lot of progress on that, and hoping to make more in the coming years.
Thanks. And of course, that ties in with the budget transparency that I keep pushing on as well. I want to know, when we've allocated money, what are our goals? What are we attempting to accomplish by directing that funding? What services, who are we paying to deliver the service? And if we know what we're trying to accomplish, then it becomes much easier to evaluate whether or not we've done it. And then funding decisions are, I think, are very rational and logical following those. So I think it's absolutely the right track. I want to see it countywide, and I want to see really measurable, and this is directed at Dr. Smith, Catherine, not at you, measurable metrics for every department, for all of the work that we're doing.
Yes.
That's all I have. So.
We totally agree with you. The whole concept basically is plan, do, study, act, plan for a service, take an action that provides that service, study whether it actually improves value or provides value to the customer, and then, change it and act again. And, we've been trying to push it throughout the entire organization. And that's our goal, and we're making a lot of progress, but we can always do better.
Thanks.
Thank you all very much for the presentation. With that, we're going to go on to item 10. So thanks all for joining us. Item 10, this is, I want to ask Marianne's going to be joining us, and this is in response, I think, to this was a report that I think was in response to myself and Supervisor Cortese asking for a little more information about becoming a local area, a local area agency on aging. But I'll turn it over, Marianne, to you.
So yes, we did talk about that. And then we've been doing some beginning exploration on what that would take. And I think County Council has sent you a confidential memo with some research about the history of it. And then in the meantime, the state has issued its master plan on aging. And in that, they indicate that they are going to be doing their own investigation to determine if the state needs so many area agencies on agings. Most of the counties have their own right now. I think there are about 39 in the state. So, the state will be looking to see if they should be consolidating those. So if we could go to the next slide, that would be great. So the AAAs, AAAs were organized as part of the Older Americans Act in 1965. What they do is awesome work, doing much community needs assessment and education and providing direct assistance, particularly in the field of senior nutrition, health insurance information, and public authority for in-home supportive services. So they're a portal to care. They get funding from both the federal and the state and local agencies. And for every dollar earned, about $3, or every dollar given, about $3 in services is leveraged. So next slide, please. So in January 2021, the state released the master plan on aging, which is talking about doing the change in the way AAAs are funded and established, and working based on geography rather than county by county. So we are waiting to hear a little bit from them, but in the meantime, we are doing some feasibility to talk about what the staffing would need to be, what the database needs would be, funding sources, commission requirements, and what RFPs and RFQs considerations we would need to take, and what sort of contract administration would be involved. Much of what the AAA does is contract administration, especially around meals. So I think there's one more slide. So we had a hearing in October regarding a contract for Meals on Wheels with SourceWise, our local AAA, and the state ruled in our favor, saying the decision was arbitrary and capricious. And I think you got copies of that attached to our ledge file. So that request for services will be, the RFP will be reissued at the end of 1 year, which was July 1st last year. So it'll be reissued in July of this year. It's normally been a multi-year contract that has been renewed several times. I think there's one more, that's it.
Thank you. So just as a little bit of history on this, both Supervisor Simidian and I, some time ago, asked our staff to determine whether or not we could be a local area agency on aging, and I'm not sure if we brought a referral to that point, which is why I'm kind of stretching my memory a little bit. But what I would like to do is to request that the county prepare itself to become a local area on aging, and also to prepare to apply for the RFP released by SourceWise this summer.
Yes, we were already planning on doing the RFP, and we're doing the feasibility study on becoming the AAA, but we can pursue that further.
That'd be great. Thank you. Supervisor Ellenberg, do you have any thoughts on this?
I do, and I support this direction. I want to first just congratulate Marianne and the county's Department on Aging and County Council for really an outstanding marshaling of evidence and testimony and facts to demonstrate that the action really was arbitrary, capricious, and a biased process by SourceWise to the ALJ. And I certainly hope that in the next RFP, SourceWise will create a process that's fair, not just in words, but in actions to all who bid for the next contract. Obviously, we're dealing with a very vulnerable population in need. And our county has a 47-year history of providing really an outstanding program to our very diverse older adult population. Certainly, we don't deserve to have this vital service degraded by a repeat of the actions detailed by the ALJ. We are the largest county in Northern California. The recently released Governor's Master Plan on Aging has asked all levels of government to take into consideration positive action to improve the quality of life for a growing older adult population. And I would share the recommendation that DAS implement their outline process to determine the feasibility of the county becoming the area agency on aging for Santa Clara County.
So can I get that in the form of a motion?
So moved.
Yeah, great. And then I'll second it with just the reminder that I do want to make sure that that we're preparing to apply for the RFP. And part of the reason I'm just putting that on the record is it wasn't as clear to me in the document that was the action. I thought it was still something that was being considered. I too want to share my thanks, Marianne, to you and Diana, and to Ms. Edwards from County Council for doing so much work on this. I apologize. I mean, it feels like it's a lot of work you guys shouldn't have had to have done in the first place. So with that, we have a motion and a second. We're going to go to the public for a comment, and then we'll come back to the board for action.
First speaker is Irvish. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you very much. I wanted to mention about the social service agencies, Department of Aging and Adult Services to the local area agencies on aging, especially around the time of a COVID-19 and pandemic. It is more than important that the people who are aging requires to be provided the right set of services, and also it is equally important to evaluate that how many seniors within the respective cities are out there with the statistics of data that requires a sort of a help where they are going from a phase 1 to phase 2 transition. And also it is equally important to understand that what are their needs. The people with a different aging, they have a different needs, as well as to sustain within the environment. In order to develop themselves, they require a different set of education resources, as well as on a day-to-day basis requires a meals, and also to provide the right set of a company and the standards to establish where they get to stay in the right social service with the social service affiliations, and as well as senior centers where they are getting the right set of services to sustain themselves. It is important to evaluate and understand that what are their needs, what are their daily needs being changed, and what is that something required to implement in order to provide a support to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I see no other comments from the public. I'm going to come back to the board. We have a motion, a second. The only other thing I'd like to add is just because of the heightened interest, Supervisor Ellenberg, of our colleagues on the board, I would like to recommend this go also to the board for an affirmation action on the two requests that were made today. So we have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call vote?
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg?
Yes.
Chairperson Chavez?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to the staff. Good work.
Thank you for all your kind words.
We'll get to item 12, and this is
Madam Chair, item 11.
Oh, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Thank you, Jess. Man, lucky I have you here. All right, item 11 is to receive a report. Oh my goodness, this was the one I was very annoying about making sure was on this agenda too. Receive a report from the Facilities and Fleet Department and the Office of Supportive Housing and Social Services relating to the hub. So this is our biannual report, and I wanted to get a brief update from staff.
Thank you, Supervisor Chavez. Consuelo Hernandez here, Director for the Office of Supportive Housing, and I am joined by my colleagues at FAF and SSA. We have a brief presentation for you, and then happy to take questions. And hope you're able to see my screen.
Yes.
Thank you. As to give you a little background again and familiarize yourself with the site, this is the property that we have selected for the Parkmore Hub update, the board directed us to consider housing as an option on the site. This shows you a quick site plan of the ground floor and what it would look like if we would move forward. The address for the property is 1510 through 1540 Parkmore Avenue. And I'm going to hand it off to Dave Berry to give you an update of the demolition timeline.
Good afternoon, Dave Berry, Chief of Facilities Planning Services, Facilities and Fleet. The overall duration has not changed since the last time we reported. We have completed the hazardous materials abatement, and we are in the design phase right now for the demolition. What you see before you is just a more detailed breakdown of everything that's involved, including the permit, advertising, and award of the contract, and the demolition. And it's roughly 18 to 22 months. We, of course, will endeavor to go try to make it on the lower end of that range. But you know, there are certain things like permitting and so forth that we can't always control. And then, but nevertheless, this schedule is synced up with OSH's schedule to bring on the developer team, permit and design that project and commence with construction. So this is intended to be completed in time for the start of construction.
Thank you, Dave. And to provide an update to the committee on the development pipeline, we have received proposals from developers to serve as our development partner. The Office of Supportive Housing, through the contracts unit at the County Executive's Office, developed a 12-person developer qualified pool. A request for offer was submitted and issued in December. Proposals were due last month, and we have received 3 proposals. The review panel is meeting now. It's an active solicitation. We hope to come back to the board, to the full board in April with an award, a request for funding, and the actions needed to continue with the process. As we reported last semi-annual report, we have submitted preliminary proposals to the City of San Jose from an entitlement period, so we are ahead of schedule from that front. Presumably, as soon as the developer is on board, they will pick it up where the FAF team left it in November. Assuming that all goes as planned, we would have something submitted formally and through at the end of the calendar year. We are looking and working with the City of San Jose on using the streamlining acts that are available, such as SB 35 and AB 2162, which reduce the overall timeline for entitlement. From that point on, the developer would start to piece together the funding that is needed to fill the gaps for the projects. As we reported on Tuesday, there are some challenges currently with the CIDLAC bond allocation and tax credits. So we have factored that into our timeline. And as Dave mentioned, the start of the construction is in line with the demolition of the structure. And we don't anticipate having that be as a setback. And we do project, based on the submissions that we've received, that it would take approximately 2 years for the construction to be completed. With that, I will introduce Don Long with SSA.
Thank you. This is Don Long with the Department of Family and Children Services. I'm a program manager. Supervisors, the next slide is just highlighting some of the programmatic elements of the hub that continues unabated during the pandemic that we have. This shows the cumulative number of units of services that were rendered to our youth since March of 2020. I just want to make a point of clarification that under virtual workshops, that should reflect 76 unique workshops, virtual workshops that we were able to provide to our youth, for a total of 1,108 youth participating. The average number of youth that came in person to the hub for services was approximately 120 per month. And in addition to the core services providing food, computers, shower, laundry, employment services, HubMart for other things. 213 youth were connected with gift cards for a total of $7,660. And through our partnership with iFoster, we were able to provide 152 laptops and 113 cell phones during that time. Next slide, please. This is just highlighting what the new hub is going to look like at the Parkmore location. So we are anticipating 17,000 square feet of office space for programs. That is a huge increase from the current footprint of 11,000 square feet at the 591 location. Differing from the current location, there will be plenty of outdoor areas for youth activities. Its design was informed by and responsive to youth participation during the development. And we're also looking at having on-site educational services, as well as employment, continuation with a hub mart, medical care, child care, social enrichment programs, or area for enrichment programs, snack area, cafe, kitchen, art studios, and computer facilities. And with that, we'll turn it back to the committee for questions.
Great, thank you. I'm going to see if there are any public speakers, and then we'll come back to the board, to the committee. Thank you.
I do have a request. Our first speaker is Sparky Harlan. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hi there. I wanted to speak on this item mainly because, as you know, Bill Wilson Center operates the hub along with SSA. And while this was being put out to bid for developers, we were being contacted as far as what the hub should look like and the housing. And when it comes to housing, of course, I'm going to be the #1 advocate for foster youth and former foster youth to get the housing. And if you read the report, all the young people we were talking to in the hub really think there are going to be some units set aside in the housing for them. And as far as I can tell, the developers don't see it that way. They kept pushing back, saying, no, this is OSH, this is permanent supportive housing. There's no commitment to former foster youth. And I was like, well, if you're going to work with me and you want my input, I want some units for former foster youth and for young parent families. And so I would just say we need to make that clear to the developers if that's what we want to do. Some of the ideas I have, if we can't get the FUP or Section 8 vouchers, maybe to use some of the THP Plus as place-based voucher to help pay for the operations costs. I currently am doing that with Eden Housing in San Jose. So the new Gallup Mesa project, we have 15 units of housing there for former foster youth when it's built and 5 for foster parents. So there are ways to make this work, but I just want to make sure that our young people aren't disappointed if the housing developer doesn't see any of those units for the former foster youth. So thank you.
That concludes, my apologies. Our next speaker is Irvish. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 1 minute to speak. Pardon me, 2 minutes to speak. And Irvish has left the call.
Thank you. We'll go back to the committee. Let me start by just with a couple of observations. One is, I think it's really critical that that we get a response to the point that Sparky just raised. And I don't know if Consuelo, if that's better you or Dave.
I can take the question, Supervisor. One of the requests in our request for offer to the proposers or potential proposers was to take into consideration the direction that the board previously gave, which is to factor in foster youth into the housing program. We do understand that some developers are not as familiar with how to integrate the foster youth within the county's Office of Supportive Housing system. So we did field the same questions that the speaker mentioned, and the proposers that have submitted that have come up with some creative ideas of how to make that all work. Definitely when this comes back to the board, part of our report back will include to you how we propose to integrate the target populations based on those discussions that we did hear as part of our community engagement a few years ago.
Well, and also Consuelo, I think that just, you know, it's board direction. So if we don't have a partner that can make that happen, then that would actually be a real reason to not move forward at this time. Honestly, that's just not where we want to be. And second, these are, you know, on this front, again, from this, just something I'll vet out a little bit in real time here, is that I think we both wanted to make sure that it was a mix of housing, that it wasn't all foster youth, but that we had foster youth and that we were able to have family housing in it as well. And so I want to make sure that we're mindful of that, because if that's not the case, then when these come forward to the board, we should really just call that out. And then the other issue is that to go back to the, you know, just to the timeline for a minute, you know, I recognize that one of the challenges is that we did a very rigorous job, and I think this was the right thing to do relative to Measure A and matching funds. I also would want to get, at least from once the completion of the development process, you know, you've chosen a partner that you want to recommend to the board, that the budget come back, well, actually, well, anyway, that the budget come back and we look at the funding gaps. And the reason that I think that's really important, there's a lot of reasons that's important that are obvious, but one of them is to look to see whether or not we can find some other partners that don't require us to get all of the funds from tax credits or external funding that's going to slow the project down. You know, and Susan, I apologize if you've heard me say this, but I just, in case you hadn't, I thought I would just kind of catch you up that when I was very, very first elected, one of the first meetings I had was a meeting with a number of foster youth who came to see me, who were extremely concerned about the hub. They were, and the reason is it had a facility in downtown San Jose, then we moved it to the east side of San Jose, and the vision for that had always been an actual home. And that's partly why, when given the opportunity to both build out the community center, but to also add the housing, we were really excited about doing that. Dr. Smith and I met with those young people in 2014. And this has been finding the land, finding the money, you know, layering over Measure A, having all kinds of problems with the current leaseholder that we have at Storing King. I mean, it's just been kind of maddening. And so, you know, one of the things I've really been asking the staff to take a look at is how we compress the timeline even further. And mostly because, you know, when you talk to kids who are now young adults, some of them now parents, you know, because it's taken us this long. And so anyway, that's a little bit of my urgency. And then the other is the point that is so obvious, which is just how much of our homeless population are former foster youth. And we, you know, this is an opportunity for us to at least put a dent in that pipeline. So I know the staff is really working diligently on it. I just wanted to say out loud that these are the benchmarks I'd like us to try to hit. And I am really interested in knowing what the total cost is. You know, if we add in the highest we've done per door, you know, if that's our contribution to Measure A, I don't want to necessarily exceed what we've done in other places, but then better understanding how we make up the rest of the components of it, I think, are really important. Consuelo, did you want to give some feedback to that?
I think it's perfect timing for your comments, Supervisor, because we are working on the interviews with the developers, and we'll make sure that the interview panel, some of which are in this meeting right now, that they factor in those 3 critical questions as they evaluate the proposals, both the timing and the leveraging, the identification and programming of foster youth into the housing plan, and then your other question was making sure that there's an option for family units.
Thank you. All right. So
can I add in?
Oh yeah, Dr. Smith. Yes. You, Susan. Is that all right, Susan? Thanks. Jeff?
I just wanted to reassure the committee and Sparky and anybody who's listening, we will not select a construction team that doesn't have a plan for foster kids.
Thanks, Jeff. Supervisor Allenberg?
I just want to appreciate the context and the history that you shared, Cindy. I know that you've been a real, just a fierce champion of kids in the foster system since you got here. And I thought that Sparky's comment earlier to the previous item about the tracking is so critical, because we're going to spend the money on one end or another. And the more that we can do in terms of prevention and that very, very early intervention, obviously, the better. When I think about the family housing, I don't know how we're able to restrict it or not, but I would think that an emphasis on very young families, the former foster kids that you mentioned that are now parents themselves, I think would most benefit from this kind of environment, to the extent that it's possible for us to emphasize that population. That's what I would like to see there in the family housing.
Great, thank you for that. I see Irvish came back. So Irvish, was this the item you intended to speak on?
I've just allowed speaking capability.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. I really appreciate for the opportunity. I just wanted to mention about two Senate bills, Senate bill and an Assembly bill that is required to be included. The Senate bill 453, which is to include as a part of providing the master plan for aging, which was introduced in 2020 for Mallow Granlund Older Californians Act, which provides the programs and strategy to support states' older population, and also the aging and disability resources for the connection program through the social services. This bill also to adapt the master plan for aging and emphasizing on a workforce priority, as that what are the different job criteria that is to be applied to the aging people, and also in the senior care center, what kind of a caregivers are to be allotted, so that they get the professional healthcare and a long-term workforce, as well as developing a throughout high quality, affordable, accessible services for the family and seniors. Also, there's also a bill which was introduced for the older adults, which is SB 453. The law establishes for Aging and Disability Resources Connection Program, administered by the California Department of Aging, to provide the consumers and their families on available long-term services and supports that allows the older adults, caregivers, person and disabilities in accessing LTSS programs for the local level. The jurisdiction, both the Senate bill as well as the Assembly bill, allows the jurisdiction to be applied to the county and as well as city level. And they also provide the ADRC infrastructure grants for the program for the purpose of implementing the door system for providing the provision, the contingent upon the funds purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have no other comments. And then I think that there's no action on here. I really appreciate the update. And Dr. Smith, I appreciate your just reiterating the emphasis. And then, one thing that I do want to make sure that if it's possible, is I apologize, I didn't ask this, by any chance, is the King Road location, is that location for sale that we're currently using as a hub?
I don't have the answer to that question. Dave, do you know?
Not to my knowledge, it is not for sale.
So if that's the case, while the lease is being renewed, I know one of the challenges we had is that we weren't able to make any changes. The kids couldn't come on the weekends. I mean, there were just so many problems with that lease. Right. That is that lease. Are you in the process, Dave, of renegotiating that lease now?
We haven't quite started it yet, but we will soon.
Well, one thing that that would be really important to know, and perhaps in a couple more meetings, even if it's a verbal report back, if we could just get an update on the location, if you all are thinking about staying here or going to move the location. I would just like the committee to be able to be clued into that, and also to make sure that we're talking to both the staff and the kids if there are any changes that we're considering, kids, young adults, and so maybe a verbal would be great if that could come back as a verbal update.
Okay, will do.
Thank you. All right. Thanks all for that. We're going to now move on to item 12, right, Jess?
Correct.
All right. This is a report back on the basic income pilot. So I don't know if Melanie, did you want to, you're on mute if you were talking. Do you want to give us a brief update?
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. So we do have a PowerPoint that we have prepared if you would like to view the PowerPoint, or we can just give some quick comments and open it up to questions.
May I, Supervisor Ellenberg, do you have a preference?
I'm fine with the quick comments and the questions.
Great. So first of all, I just wanted to say thank you for the report, and just to acknowledge, I know that Senator Cortese on Monday announced that he's looking at doing statewide legislation on this, which I think is great. So excited about that, and really focusing on God, it's a huge number, 3,000 young people who would benefit from a program like this. And so with that, one of the things that I was really interested in is, and Supervisor Ellenberg, just so you know, is that initially when this was brought to us, it was brought in two parts. One was to have a control group, and the other was kids that would be eligible for the program. And both Dave and I didn't want to do that, just seemed so inhumane. But one of the things where we got a little stuck is that Dave and I brought a referral to the board to expand the program. And we didn't get support from the board to do that, but as part of that, one of the requests that I was making is that we at least keep the same number in the cohort, since we'd already set the budget aside for it. But I think that the staff, I'm not sure I made it a motion or I made it a recommendation, but what I want to do is I want to move that we keep it full of kids, and the staff was concerned about that because they wanted to have a stable cohort for evaluation purposes. I think it's pretty easy to determine which kids came in at what period of time. So I do want to keep the cohort a full cohort. And I'm just wondering, Melanie, is that something that you guys have given some thought to, and do you have a recommendation?
Yes, absolutely. So we did have 7 individuals who were dropped from the program, and we did then add 7 new additional youth into the program, and we intend to continue doing that. We have at least engaged the youth within the age range, so we have their contact information, and if the opportunity becomes available, we can add them quickly. But for now, our 72 are solid, they're engaged, and they keep in contact with us regularly.
That's great to know. And then I apologize that I don't remember this, but what I can't remember is the report out of this to the full board to determine whether or not this would be a bigger program of the board. When was that planned to be done? Was that in 2021? Was that this year?
So we were looking at June of 2021.
Okay. So we'll see you back in June of 2021 with some recommendations?
Well, we will be here to CSFC in May, and then to the board.
And then one thing, Dr. Smith, I'm just going to make sure I ask this of you, is that as part of the budget process, can we include the resources to continue and potentially the expansion of the program, or at least identify the amount of money so the board has the option to take that action?
I'll have to work on the process, but we can certainly get it in front of the board during the budget or at an appropriate time during the budget decisions. Yes.
That would be great, because what I just want to make sure of is that we don't stop the program, that there's continuity to the program if depending on the results of the program. So, and I recognize the board still has to vote on it. I'm not trying to jump in queue. I'm really just wanting you to be able to say, here's how much it would cost, here's where we'd have to take the money from. That's really what my objective is.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, all right. So Susan, did you have any feedback on this program?
I do, and I was part of the majority of the board that wanted to wait before expanding the program. I think that the potential is really exciting, and I want to see this succeed, and would be absolutely open to expanding it once we have some metrics and we're able to see what the intended impacts are. So just as we talked about earlier, I think that it's just critical that we have the clear metrics for what the intended impacts are, so that we know that we're successful and we can broadcast that we are successful and show that this is a program that works and is transformative, and then expand from there. So I had two thoughts at the same time and they were warring with each other. I'm curious to know what you can tell me, Melanie, about why the 7 kids were dropped from the program.
So we had a very small list of things that they had to do just to be enrolled in the program, and that was to complete a W-9 form and get us a hard copy that was signed. And they also had to register for the card online, receive the card in the mail, and activate it online. Those were the only required steps. And we gave them 3 months. We offered to have them also come to the county building, pick up the form, sign it, hand it back to us, but it couldn't happen. And we were very lucky to have partners at the hub who also volunteered to kind of help get the youth. And it didn't quite happen. And we don't know why they haven't engaged with us. They haven't wanted to continue talking to us other than that initial contact.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And it's actually interesting that it was only 7 on one hand. That's a very small percentage. And I also am glad to hear all of the efforts that we made to eliminate barriers. If it was an internet issue, they could come in and get the papers. If it was a literacy or language issue, there were folks at the hub to help them fill it out. So it does sound like we're working very hard to remove any barriers from joining, but that's useful information. Can you tell me now, and if not, that's fine, what are we determining as success and after what period of time?
I can speak to that. So we have a longitudinal evaluation plan that we presented earlier to the board, and it's really all based on self-report, looking at a variety of domains. So on the baseline survey, we gathered a lot of demographic information about their living situation, but then also asked them about things like time use, their psychological well-being, physical well-being. And so those are some of the domains that we'll include on the follow-up survey. So what we'll see is a sort of trend in the right direction. That's sort of how we would determine success. And we borrowed that survey from a couple of other basic income pilots that were done in Stockton, and then one that's kicking off in Oakland. So it's a very robust survey. And then I think Melanie has some other kind of narrative components that she's working on.
So that's really interesting, Sandhya, that it's focused on well-being and qualitative pieces. Are there metrics, and I'm not suggesting that these are even appropriate, I don't know enough to say that, but is there any component that evaluates housing stability, educational attainment, job securing?
We ask about work, we ask about education, we ask about all that on the survey, but it is self-report, so there's always a little bit of bias in that. Other places have been able to other places that have done UBI experiments have been able to get more objective data, like healthcare data or data from the schools, but that would be harder for us to pull off. So right now, we have to rely on self-report.
So for other groups that have done this sooner and longer than we have, if they exist, what is the envisioned length of somebody's participation in the program? Is it open-ended? Is it until they achieve some particular goal or reach a certain age? What's the full circle?
I think Stockton had done a 1-year pilot and is now extending it for another year. I think some other UBI programs have been longer lasting, 2 to 5 years. And they've also looked at a bunch of other metrics like decrease in criminal involvement and educational attainment. So they've looked at, depending on the length of the program, they've been able to track, sort of more robust objective metrics.
Interesting. I'm really excited to see what our data shows and what this looks like as we get further in. I certainly support maintaining a stable cohort right now, since we've identified the funding for it. Thank you.
Dr. Smith?
I was just going to point out, as you said, Senator Cortese introduced a bill to create a state pilot, and I'm sure that when the board considers their action on the local pilot, we will have more information about what the state has done and how that might interact with our program. So I expect the landscape will be different as we proceed, and hopefully a lot better.
Thanks, Dr. Smith. I think the only other thing that I want to add is that after listening just to the exchange between Supervisor Ellenberg and staff, I think that one thing we should also consider is what we have learned and whether or not program expansion would be rooted in an expanded mechanism for evaluation. Because I think one of the points that that Susan raised that I think is actually very important is whether or not there are more robust ways to determine well-being, including not just self-reporting, but the, we've looked at housing stability, job stability, school stability, like much more, whether or not it's possible for us to kind of do a deeper dive with an expanded program. And I also think that we're going to benefit quite a lot from learning from other partners. So I'm glad you're looking at those other teams. All right, I see no other action necessary on this item. So thanks very much for the report out. We're going to move to item 13, and I just wanted to share with Supervisor Ellenberg for the next few. I think that if we can, I'm just going to warn staff that I don't think we'll need a report outs nearly so much as just a couple of questions. I see Dan here on our neighbor to neighbor program. And Dan, I have a quick question on this item, and then I'll go right to Supervisor Ellenberg. If there's anybody who wants to speak on it, this would be the time to raise your hand. But Dan, on the neighbor to neighbor program, has the MOU been finalized yet from County Council?
Yeah, we have the MOU through County Council. We're working on finalizing some of the language to send to the first five.
And what's the timeline for that?
That we're anticipating that's going over there next week. So, okay. And we've already started meeting with first five to start doing the program development.
Great. And then, so if we can just get either a verbal here or an off agenda, it's up to you. I know those take forever to write up, but for the April Children's Family Committee, and Supervisor Ellenberg, on this one, my heightened interest in this is that this is part of the initial work by the Foster Youth Task Force, and this was the key preventative strategy that we wanted to implement and start evaluating. And and this had to do with not separating children from their families and all of the disproportionality work we've been focused on. So this MOU has been what I've been focused on for months. Supervisor Ellenberg, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Nothing in addition. I imagine the work is more complicated during a pandemic when we're in the purple and red tiers, but hopefully we will be beyond that soon. And I think this is really exciting.
So we'll look forward to hearing in April how you're doing, Dan.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, item 14. This is the summer camps and in play. And just for future, I'd like these to be decoupled because they are different programs, and it would be helpful for me to be able to see them as such. But with that, I'm going to see if there's any update the staff wants to give, and then Supervisor Ellenberg, I I know this is one of your programs and one of mine nested together, so.
Afternoon, Supervisors, Donald with DCS. Thank you for that. So the outreach has begun and we are making final touches to our online registration. There were some things that we needed to make sure that we have the data metrics built into the online tool associated with the registration form. But we've been making a lot of outreach to caregivers and parents and others regarding the summer camps. Families are able to use in-play to search for activities if they need ideas for things for kids to do. And we're also making a lot of outreach to camps to figure out and find out what exactly they are doing for the summer in terms of both in-person and virtual capacity and so forth. And we've been in touch with also in-play to make sure that we're able to integrate their platform and leverage a lot of that as well. With that, I'll turn it over to George.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is George Montes with the Office of Contracts Management. I am reporting on the in-play portion of the report. And first, I've had the pleasure to work very closely with the Department of Family and Children's Services to increase outreach and reach out to the target population so we could maximize use on both the summer camps and also the in-play system. And it was a nice bridge to get into the same mission that DFCS has initiated in terms of their population served. We also extended throughout different department agencies such as DEBS, the Office of Cultural Competency, the Public Health Department, all of which have been participating in our efforts to reach out to different areas of the county, including the school districts and all that. And I'll go later into the report a little bit more details on how that is being accomplished and what we are seeing in future developments.
So let me start with the summer camps, and then Supervisor Ellenberg, I'll turn it over to you on in-play. I think, you know, Supervisor Ellenberg, one of my concerns about in-play was just that the universal kind of access and how that would really work. And, you know, and then with our summer camps, really, the intent here was to make it really easy for, in particular, foster families to access these services and to be able to access multiple camps and not cost money. And so to make it easier to do that. What I want to request is that that as the program comes to fruition, that all the board offices be given the tools necessary to do outreach in their own communities, because you know we have lots of families throughout the organization. I also want to make sure that all of the partners that we have that are providing services to foster youth are also informed of the program. And more importantly to me, and I really couldn't entirely understand how this was going to work this year from reading the report, I'm particularly interested in the ease for the foster families or the young adults that are accessing these programs, so that they're able to go online like everybody else and not be stuck because they don't have a credit card, but that they're able to access the programming. Has that been worked out for this summer already?
Yeah, so the processes that families or participants all they have to do is let us know which programs they want the kids enrolled in, the date and times and so forth, and let us know whether they would like us to send a check to those programs on their behalf.
Do they call you, Don? They call, do they go online? How do they, what's the mechanism?
So they have the option of calling CAPA, who's a contractor. They have a program staff for that, or they could use the online link. So we're making final touches to the flyer right now. We're about to send that out to all the district offices and your policy aides to help with distribution, as well as all of our contacts throughout internal as well as external. So we share the information with organizations such as First 5, the Child Advocates programs, all of our line partners, in this work that has anything to do with youth, and also sharing with the hub population as well that they do have access to these programs.
So Don, so that a family member can either call or
Yes.
they can go online and register through us for any of the programs that are available.
Yes, all they have to do is just let us know which programs they want to enroll the kids in, and whether they will be paying for it and seeking reimbursement, or for us to pay on their behalf.
And
we'll
they do that through CAPCA.
Yes, through CAPCA.
Either, and they can do that either online with them or on a phone call.
On phone, yes.
And if the program, like let's say someone picks a program that we're not currently working with, the CAPCA has the flexibility to pay for that program.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
We've had a vast array of diversity of programs that families had chosen to use beyond the ones that we had focused on. So there's no limitations to what families can choose to use.
You know, I know this won't be an issue for this summer, or maybe it will be, but one thing that that I do want to just reinforce is that we're talking to the County Office of Education about their some of their summer programming, and also some of the hard to get into programs, even if we have to call them and squat on some programs. Like Hidden Villa is really hard to get into, and Happy Hollow has been a partner of ours for a while, but those are programs that get impacted relatively quickly. So I would just like to add that if we can ask CAPCA to have those conversations, and if CAPCA, if their organizations are non-responsive, I'd love to know that so that I could follow up with them to make sure kids get access.
We'll certainly do that. It's been a tag team effort between CAPCA and us. So I do have staff that assist with this, and between the two entities, we are able to make the outreach. And so we'll be happy to reach out to Happy Hollow and other organizations.
That's great. Thank you. Supervisor Ellenberg?
Thanks. The in-play referral was my very first one on the board. In fact, with D5, and I'm excited that the database will fully launch this summer, and that we've already had a series of successful smaller pilots throughout the county. So I really appreciate the work on this.
Thanks both of you, Don and George. We appreciate all the work you've done. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, so we'll move on to item 15, and this is Timely Medical and Dental program. Very exciting. And Dan, do you want to just give us an update and welcome Kathleen?
Yeah, absolutely. I am very excited to have Kathleen King, who's the CEO of Healthier Kids Foundation, join to be able to provide any additional information or updates regarding the work that they've been doing with us. So over the last year, Healthier Kids Foundation and DFCS have been working on implementing this project to provide notifications and reminders to caregivers on medical and dental appointments. The program went live in November, and by December had already received over 90 referrals. So I think there's been a significant impact thus far. And, I know that there are currently 32 dental referrals. 15 of them are still active, so 15 are still being worked on through Healthier Kids Foundation. 17 were closed, and of those closed ones, 82% of them were due to successful completion of exams. And of the medical exams, we had 58. 26 were still active at the time of creating this report, and 75% of the closed ones were due to successful closure due to exams being achieved. So again, it's still early on in the work, but I appreciate what Healthier Kids has done to partner with GFCS to ensure the needs of these youth are being met. So Kathleen, I'll turn it over if you have any additional you wanted to add.
No, I think it's been a great partnership. Jackie Howe has been working with us for over a year on it. And she's so passionate. You're all so passionate. We put the best person we had. We used to call him case manager. Now we call her parent advocate. But we put the best we have on it. She speaks Spanish, English. And the hardest thing has been talking some families into taking children in during the time that we were in purple tier But we go through all the reasons why it's safe and hope to convince the foster parents it's the right thing to do. So it's a great program for us. It fits right into what I'd call our sweet zone, what we like doing best. So thank you.
Kathleen,
Thanks.
thank you. And also,
Thanks for including us.
Are you kidding? I think you didn't give us a choice, but I'm gonna just present. I mean, if any kid who has a health need, Kathleen King personally is there. So thank you for all your really good work. You know, I do want to just say the growth in this program, I mean, just from where we were a few years ago to today is dramatic. I want to really thank the staff. I know it took a while to get our arms around this problem, but appreciate that we're working the problem. One problem here, Supervisor Ellenberg, that I just wanted to raise is that a big part of how we got on top of the dental appointments, especially for these hard to serve families, was through a partnership with public health. So this is public health, SSA, and our nonprofit partner in this, the Healthier Kids Foundation. Most of the public health nurses who were working on this, in fact, all of them are now disaster service workers. And so the thing I wanted to ask, and I think Dr. Smith is, he is here. The thing I wanted to ask Dr. Smith to take a look at is whether or not, as we're transitioning further down the pike relative to vaccinations, whether or not we can bring at least half of the 8 that have been and the manager back to the program. And the reason is that we really are in the status of trying to get people to get their basic medical care taken care of. And so I feel like we have to at least pivot in part back to getting that done. And I'm hoping that you would be able to, as you guys are working through the disaster service worker rubric, which I know is complex, if you are going to be able to take a look at least bringing part of these folks back to this program.
Yes.
If I could start push it even a little bit further, because of course the public health nurses, have been redeployed already for some time. In the interim, can we not train other staff to enter data to keep the I think it's the CWS CMS data up to date? Is there a reason that only that group of public health nurses is qualified to do the data input?
Yeah, this is Dan. The system had been previously set up where public health was providing not only just a data entry, but they were reviewing the records. So it's a little bit of a medical record check as opposed to just data entry. So it was a combined role.
But
to answer the question about DSWs, we are in the process of looking at all of the deployed DSWs and what they do as their regular job and resetting priorities. We'll be looking at this very carefully to make sure that we can keep the program active and live at the same time that we do all the vaccines that we need to do.
yeah, and I appreciate the point that Supervisor Ellenberg's raising too, and it might mean that we have to figure out if there's an expanded role for our nonprofit partners as well. I mean, I just, whatever it takes, I just don't want to be behind on this dental work. And the other reason is that I'm certain that as we get down into different tiers, that we're going to have more and more pressure on the systems right now that are providing these services, and there may be a window of opportunity, like a one-time window, for us to get caught up with the kids that are most needy. So anyway, that would be my recommendation. Anything else, Supervisor Ellenberg?
I just want to kind of shine a light on this. This is an example of the type of issue that I raised during the mid-year budget, of how important it is for the board to have visibility on these county activities that continue to be impacted by, of course, the appropriate redeployment of staff to COVID, and how administration is adapting to mitigate those impacts. I'm concerned here that it sounds like the work just has stopped since the public health nurses aren't available. Do we need to be doing more in terms of identifying other staff roles, other staff to backfill or do something else with our processes so that we continue to meet core service needs.
Yeah, Supervisor Ellenberg, for DFCS, we have, whenever an opportunity presents itself where we have to redeploy or shift processes around to make sure that we're looking at how do we not lose a core function. And there are oftentimes choices we have to make on priorities depending on what work is left for which staff. So I know this is something I can go back and continue to work on with Jackie to see kind of the time frame for the public health nurses and what we can help fill in the gap. I think I think the work that we're doing with Healthier Kids to ensure the actual exams are done, that was our primary concern, was to make sure that the children actually receive their concerns. And if I have to do a data cleanup at the end, then I could potentially do that. But I will go back and work with Jackie on that.
That's totally fair, Dan, and I really appreciate that. I'm really just looking at it as an example of what else might be on hold right now while people are redeployed. And if it's, just data entry that doesn't slow down actual work and getting services to clients, it's not so much of a concern, but it's a concern to me that I don't know if there's a lot more that I don't know about. So it's more of a global issue, a bigger question, but I'm certainly grateful that Kathleen's folks are continuing to actually do the work and get kids to their screenings.
Supervisor Ellenberg, thanks for raising that. I think that's a very good illustration. I think two things that I would just acknowledge, just that you made me think of. One is this was something that that really took a long time to get moving. And just to reinforce your point, I think this was again raised in like 2015, and it's taken us a while to get the program really up and moving. So I think the point you're raising, Supervisor Ellenberg, about not having the complete halt after it took so long to get moving is not lost on me. But the other thing I just wanted to say to staff is that I think that I really appreciate the candor in these reports about what we're doing and what we're not doing. And I never want anybody who comes before us to feel bruised with the truth, right? And so I want you to hear that I think I can speak on behalf of Supervisor Ellenberg and myself that this isn't that. This is really us trying to figure out how do we continue to do that.
100%.
And part of the reason, Supervisor Ellenberg, I'm raising that is that I really wanted in this committee for people to just give us the numbers, and I know you're saying the same thing I am. That's why I feel really confident about it. But I just wanted to say to you guys, I know we don't want to go back. It took us so long to move forward. It would just be heartbreaking to move back. So thank you for that.
So, thank you. I appreciate your saying that. And it's for sure not about blame. This is it's always continuous improvement.
Right.
Somewhere. Is it not a priority, or how do we do it better? And where else is this happening so that we can address and make decisions about priorities? So yeah, thank you for doing that kind of thing.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. And then on item 16, is a verbal update from social services on the social work supervisor positions. And you may recall that as part of the VSIP program that we had some concerns raised from the public and from our staff about the implications of some of the changes to the social work, particularly to the, I think it was Urajima program and South County. So this was an opportunity for both Dr. Smith and for Dan to give us an update on how they're addressing these vacancies.
Maybe I can start and then we'll turn it over to Dan. As the board's familiar with the VSIP process, I'll explain a little bit for the public. This was a voluntary incentive program for people to separate from the county rather than to run the risk of an involuntary separation. We did have over 500 people, employees participate in the program. And that was the way that we were able to balance the budget for this year and prepare for next year. As part of that balancing process, the commitment was made in order to recognize the financial benefit that we would delete those positions. We've had a process of reviewing the impact of deleting positions that went on, and that process continues. We will be coming back to the board with a number of changes in the VSIP position allocation process, changes related to the fact that we now have different projections for revenue and expenditures based on changes that happened at the state and will happen at the federal level. So the VSIP process was intended and is intended to be a money-saving issue, not a program change, because a particular supervisor in a particular program resigned does not mean that the program ends. It means that the department has the responsibility of finding another supervisor who can fulfill that obligation. So that being said, we are reviewing all of the reduction plans with all of the departments, including social services. We're in the process of doing that, and we will be coming back with modifications as appropriate. Dan, do you want to expand on your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Smith. Specifically for the 3 units in question within DFCS, I know that there was some concern originally presented that there was a possibility that those teams were going to get disbanded. I just want to reassure everybody that that's not happening, that there's no plan to disband any of those 3 teams that we're working on. We have an interim coverage plan to make sure that those units stay together. And then we have a plan to be able to put in a replacement full-time supervisor position. So those teams will remain in effect.
Thank you. Supervisor Ellenberg.
Thanks. I requested at the board meeting on Tuesday an off agenda regarding service levels. Certainly the same question applies right here. And earlier in item 9, I mentioned the evaluation assessment of needs and future planning to address kids and expanded or exacerbated needs of kids and families through the pandemic. So really having a handle on knowing where our service levels are is really critical. So thank you for working on that. Supervisor Chavez, you have to run.
Yeah, I do have to bounce off, but and I apologize, Supervisor Ellenberg, and to the staff. I have another meeting that I need to participate in, but I just wanted to say I'm looking forward to hearing that. I'm glad you're saying these programs will be protected, that and that there will be a tool for meeting the needs of these 3 particular programs. And there are other areas, and I just want to reiterate something we talked about a minute ago, that where we are making a decision that the service level will be changed, I think it's okay to say that. I think it allows the board then to prioritize the programs that we don't want to see slip through the cracks. And that was really the reason I was so interested in hearing this today. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there public speakers on this item?
Yes.
Okay, let's do 2 minutes, please.
Our first speaker is Irvish. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking. Irvish, are you there? There we go.
Yes. Okay. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much. I think, I wanted to specifically, mention about the family and children services, and also that, what social services agency can provide as a part of an improvement program. There has been a concern about the summer in schools and education system about that, what kind of a nutrition program to evaluate as to provide the right set of feeding standards as per the federal nutrition program to the kids. It is important that there are that social service agencies work with the nonprofit organization to establish the winter, summer, and as well as different seasonal program activities, and provide the right set of a nutrition program needs as a part of an educational system and within the schools, and provide those meals to the children on a daily basis. Also, it is important that within the school programs, the children gets the right set of standards and as well as and as well as the educational needs to understand that what it is take to develop a different culture diversification, and as well as a different educational system, so that children gets to understand that what it is to cultivate themselves within the different culture environment. Also, it is important to evaluate that the children receive the vaccinations and the right medical resources in a timely manner under the COVID-19 situation, and if it is required, to implement the distance education and learning program as well, with the right set of necessary bills, assembly and state bills as well. Thank you.
That concludes our speakers.
Thank you very much. We'll move to item 17, a verbal report from SSA Director. Hi, Bob.
Hey there. Good afternoon. Just a brief update. I did want to provide a little information on the Golden State stimulus package that went through the state legislature. I think folks have probably heard lots about it from the standpoint of how citizens will benefit, and a lot of it relates to the earned income tax credit piece of how that relief will be delivered. But there are also some smaller pieces in it that mirror that, as well as some additional relief that relates specifically to some of the safety net work that we do, and want to just call that out for everybody's attention. One piece of it is that for certain public assistance recipients and under CalWORKS and for SSI and one of the immigrant programs, there's also will be a $600 grant disbursement to that population. We're just getting information on this, and it sounds like you're going to try to push this through the state's eligibility system, so that drive our payments to recipients currently. And it looks like they're targeting the 27th of March to do that. I just want to bring that to your guys' attention from the standpoint of we may need to just come to the board to acknowledge the budget authority to be making that. So if we need to do that, we'll get that out in front of you guys as soon as possible in preceding the 27th, so those payments can go out. We're excited about that. It's every little bit helps. Along those lines, there was about $12 million in additional administrative funding related to the CalFresh program that will be coming to counties. And this relates to the expansion in CalFresh benefits across the country as they were expanded to the college student population. So we will benefit from that, from the standpoint of having a few extra administrative dollars for the workload impact related to delivering that. Also related to that, there is $6 million included in the act to do outreach specifically for that program, and that will be going out through the University of California system. But at least there's some outreach efforts that we can keep an eye out for, and also partner with to help make sure there's good uptake on utilization of that particular benefit. There was also an additional $35 million included for some food and diaper bank benefits. This relates more broadly to safety net functions, but not so much social services, but things we keep an eye on in terms of helping direct people to wherever there's resources available. And additionally, there was about $400 million also on the child care side for the support of essential workers and things of that nature. So beyond just the $600 EITC piece, there was some other good news in there. We just wanted to share that with you, and happy to take any questions.
There is no better report than one that announces more money coming in so that we can help more people in our community. So thanks very much for that, Bob. Jess, are there speakers on this item?
I do not see any requests, no.
Okay, then we'll move to item 18, which is a verbal report from Child Support Service Director.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi.
It's Regina today. I'm Deputy Director filling in for Ignacio today.
Hey,
and just wanted to give a brief report out on our department. Effective next Friday, a total of 18 employees will no longer be with the department as a result of the Voluntary Separation Incentive Program. And so as a result, this is requiring that we take a look at our operations, of course, such as our workflow processes and which includes our court and caseload management. And so one of the things that we are looking at doing is stratifying our caseloads And another is working with the courts to modify our court calendar matrix. And so by doing this, it will allow us to continue to provide the customer service that our customers have grown to expect or come to expect and rely on. So this is in the works. We've been meeting, and so this is what we're planning to do. And just wanted to give you a quick update, and that's what we're working on right now.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Do we have any speakers on this item?
One request.
Okay.
Our first speaker is Irvish. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You will have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you very much again to the chairperson, supervisor Susan Ellenberg. I want to mention about the Assembly Bill 1092, child support enforcement by the California state. It is important to understand that how John Swire Child Support Enforcement Act works, in which child support is at the party had received applying the assistance through the California Work Opportunity and responsible to kids to provide the different needs through the CalWorks program. Also, as a part of a CalWorks department to support the child's to support this bill, they have also collecting the interest that provides the right set of a funding through the section 17500 as per the family code proposed by the Senate Bill 337. Also, it is important to understand that how the Senate Bill 337 as per the Legislative Council that provides the cash assistance through the social services needs families through the CalWorks and provides the opportunity and responsibility to kids for utilizing the federal temporary assistance through the block grant program. By developing this grant program, it allows the CalWorks to provide the $50 of any amount for the child support for the monthly payment, and also making sure that as per the law, the child support services provides implement the standards at the city level, county level, and as well as the state level. Both the Senate and Assembly bills jurisdiction is applicable to the state and as well as the Senate level. Also, I wanted to mention about the federal bill as well. The federal bill, which is introduced in 116th Congress as part of a Tribal Child Support Enforcement Act. There are certain standards, they are established as a part of that bill to provide the support to the tribal child as well. Thank you.
That concludes
Thank you.
Speakers.
Thank you. Just before we adjourn, I just want to ask a quick question to County Council. I know that we're working on having juvenile probation start reporting on the dais at CFSC. Do you have an estimate on when that will happen?
Sorry, Supervisor, I don't, but it can happen at any time. I mean, so long as it's been cleared through administration, my understanding is Dr. Smith has said that it's okay. So that certainly could lawfully happen at any meeting.
Great. Let's see. And my office is happy to help do whatever we need to do to make that happen for the next meeting. I know they're excited and I'm excited to hear from them.
Very good.
Thank you. With that, we will adjourn. Our next meeting is March 25th at 2 p.m. right here on Zoom. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jess, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.